In the middle of World War II, Germany developed one of the most feared tanks in history, the Tiger II, armed with the 88mm KWK-43 gun. Its firepower and armor made it an icon on the battlefield. However, a few years later, a different path was chosen. The Germans replaced the 88mm Tiger II with the 90mm gun of the American M47 Patton. Why did they do this? And what new tank is Germany developing today to replace it? By mid-1942, when the Tiger I had barely entered service, the German High Command was already looking for its successor. Experience on the Eastern Front had made it clear that the new Soviet tanks, such as the T-34 with its 85mm gun and the IS-2 with its 122mm piece, could soon surpass the capabilities of the original Tiger. Its 100mm frontal armor was no longer a guarantee, and the 88mm KWK-36 gun, so feared in 1941, was starting to fall short. It also generated a recoil of up to 50 centimeters inside the turret, with a free recoil energy exceeding 120,000 joules, causing significant jolts to the chassis and the 57-ton turret. The hydro-pneumatic system responsible for absorbing this recoil, featuring a single cylinder and nitrogen pressure of 180 to 260 bar, frequently leaked and had a real recovery time of 2.2 to 2.8 seconds, longer than the 1.5 seconds specified. These limitations caused the gunner to temporarily lose aim after each shot, increasing the interval between hits and reducing the effective rate of fire to 3 to 4 rounds per minute, well below the theoretical maximum of 8 to 10. Additionally, the turret mounts and system anchors showed premature structural fatigue. Cracks were detected after 800 to 1,500 shots, and fastening bolts tightened to 300 to 350 newton meters instead of the required 420 newton meters, leading to failures in up to 45% of inspected vehicles. Barrel misalignment after recoil could generate angular errors of 0.8 to 1.5 mils, accumulating up to 4 mils after 5 consecutive shots. Under adverse environmental conditions, such as temperatures as low as -15 degrees Celsius or the presence of dust and sand, the hydraulic fluid became extremely viscous, 280 centistokes at -20 degrees Celsius versus 65 centistokes at 40 degrees Celsius, increasing wear on the rods and reducing the recommended maintenance intervals from 100 rounds to just 40 to 60, decreasing operational availability and raising the mean repair time to over 16 hours. Due to these issues, in 1942, Porsche and Henschel competed to develop a new German tank that would meet the Army's requirements. Porsche presented a revolutionary design with a diesel-electric propulsion system. 2 engines powered generators that supplied electricity to motors in the drive wheels. On paper, it was innovative and promised smooth driving, but in practice, it was bulky, complex, consumed large amounts of copper, a resource increasingly scarce in Germany, and raised serious doubts about its combat reliability. Its turret, designed by Krupp, had curved aerodynamic lines, but suffered from a fatal flaw. The rounded mantlet created the dreaded shot trap, deflecting rounds toward the upper hull. Henschel's project, by contrast, focused on continuity. It retained a 700 horsepower Maybach HL 230 engine, the same as the Panther, coupled to a proven mechanical transmission. Its suspension, based on transverse torsion bars, was more robust and easier to repair than Porsche's, which had inherited the problematic Tiger P system. Armor reached 150 millimeters on the frontal glacis, angled at 50 degrees, effectively over 220 millimeters, and the turret evolved into a simplified design with 180 millimeters flat front and a wedge-shaped mantlet, eliminating the vulnerability of the shot trap. The choice of armament also sparked debate. The old 88mm L56 gun of the Tiger I had reached its limits, and larger calibers, such as 105mm or even the 128mm later, used on the Jag Tiger were considered. However, these heavier shells reduced the rate of fire, took up too much space, and complicated logistics. The 88L/71, over 6 meters long, struck the perfect balance. a muzzle velocity of 1,130 meters per second, the ability to penetrate more than 200 millimeters of armor at 1 kilometer, and enough ammunition capacity to sustain combat. Germany also evaluated other alternatives, such as upgrading the Tiger I with a new gun, developing a reinforced Panther II, or even pursuing the standardized E-series projects. But all of these required time, resources, and development that the Reich could no longer afford. The urgency of facing the IS-2 demanded an immediate decision. By January 1943, the balance tipped decisively. Porsche's design was too risky at a time when any delay could cost the war. Its complex electric transmission, the copper shortage, and the mechanical failures seen at Kursk with the Ferdinand tank destroyer, derived from its chassis, sealed its fate. Henschel's project, although enormous, heavy, and difficult to mass-produce, was the safer option. It used familiar technologies, engines, and parts shared with the Panther, and could enter production without reinventing the entire industrial chain. Thus was born the Tiger II, the heaviest tank in regular service during the war. With virtually impenetrable frontal armor and the most powerful 88mm gun ever mounted on a tank, it represented the culmination of the German doctrine of prioritizing extreme quality over quantity. Although the Tiger II was developed from 1943, it did not see combat until 1944. And with Germany's surrender in 1945, the country not only lost the war but also its entire military capability. The Reich was disarmed, its arms factories dismantled, and its army dissolved. The tanks that had once symbolized German might, from the Panther to the Tiger II, were reduced to scrap, war trophies, or museum pieces. For the next 10 years, Germany ceased to be a military power. Its territory was divided into occupation zones, and none of the victorious powers was willing to allow the Germans to build tanks again or raise an army of their own. In practice, the country was removed from the military stage, reduced to occupied ground where strategic decisions were made in Washington, Moscow, London, and Paris. But the international balance soon shifted. In 1949, the Federal Republic of Germany was founded in the West, and with it came a new scenario. The country was no longer merely a defeated nation, but became the front line against the Soviet bloc. The Cold War transformed Europe. The outbreak of the Korean War in 1950 made it clear that the East-West conflict could escalate at any moment, and that the defense of Western Europe would be impossible without German support. Thus, in barely a decade, Germany went from absolute defeat and total disarmament to becoming an essential player in Western strategy. In 1955, the Federal Republic was admitted into NATO and authorized to rearm, though under strict oversight from its allies. It was no longer about rebuilding the old Wehrmacht, but about creating an entirely new army, the Bundeswehr, fully integrated into the Western defense structure. In this way, the end of the Tiger II was not merely the end of a tank, but the collapse of an entire military doctrine. Germany would remain without tanks for 10 years until the logic of the Cold War forced the victors to restore its armed role. The reconstruction of the Bundeswehr began with an immediate challenge: building an army from scratch in a country that had spent 10 years without armed forces, without active military factories, and without recent experience in tanks. The United States took on a central role in this process, aware that West Germany had to become a bulwark against the Warsaw Pact, whose armored forces far outnumbered those of the Western Bloc. The solution was the M47 Patton, an American tank armed with a 90mm gun that would become the backbone of the new German armored force. The first units began arriving in late 1956, initially at training grounds and barracks prepared to receive them, such as the Kampftruppenschule II in Munster, or the bases at Andernach, Augustdorf, and Hemer. But it was not simply a matter of shipping the tanks to Germany. They often arrived partially disassembled, lacking optics or complete equipment, and required German engineers and gunners to get them fully operational. Training was also crucial. The United States sent instructors who trained the first Germans under the train-the-trainer model, teaching everything from driving and maintenance to firing the 90mm gun and coordinating with infantry and artillery. In this way, the Bundeswehr learned not just how to operate a tank, but how to integrate into an entirely new combat doctrine. The M36 90mm gun of the M47 marked a new era. Derived from the M1 anti-aircraft gun and the M3 tank gun used on the Pershing, it was optimized for mass production, reliability, and NATO standardization. At 50 calibers long, it was shorter and more manageable than the 6.5 meters of the Tiger II's gun, making loading, aiming, and maneuvering in combat far easier. Its ammunition followed a clear progression. The standard M82 APCT round, with a muzzle velocity of 853 meters per second, was sufficient to destroy a T-34/85. The more aerodynamic M318A PBCT at 914 meters per second was effective at medium-range targets, and the specialized M431H VAP rounds with tungsten cores and a velocity of 1,220 meters per second were intended to counter the latest armor such as the T-54 and T-55, though limited in use due to cost and availability. The logic was simple. To field a tank capable of meeting the real threat in the distances and conditions where war was most likely to unfold. The M47 was not only effective, but also perfectly suited to the terrain and strategy of the Cold War. The Central European plains, especially along the inner German border, were the stage for a possible massive confrontation with hundreds of Soviet tanks. Here, mobility and the ability to react quickly were essential. With a power-to-weight ratio of 18.4 horsepower per ton, the Patton could move rapidly along the front, employ fire and movement tactics, fire 1 or 2 rounds, and shift positions before being targeted by enemy artillery. In a tactical nuclear scenario where dispersion and speed could mean survival, the heavy, slow Tiger II would have been an easy target. The M47, by contrast, could move, regroup, and continue fighting. The Bundeswehr thus learned to prioritize reliability, mobility, and interoperability with allies, rather than the absolute ballistic perfection that had defined the Tiger II era. The shift from the 88mm to the 90mm gun was not simply a technical update but a complete transformation in the way combat was conceived and conducted. While the Tiger II had been designed for long-range engagements, relying on its virtually impenetrable frontal armor and its 88mm L71 gun, capable of penetrating up to 270 millimeters at 500 meters and still effective at over 2 kilometers. The M47 Patton was built around a different philosophy, emphasizing adaptability, speed, and sustainability in combat. Its M36 90mm gun, at 50 calibers long, was shorter and more manageable than the Tiger II's massive barrel, making aiming, reloading, and handling easier. Its ammunition reflected the same practical mindset. The M82 APCT round, with 853 meters per second velocity, could defeat a T-34/85. The M318 APBCT, at 914 meters per second, was better suited to medium-range fights, while the tungsten-cored M431 HVAP at 1,220 meters per second could penetrate modern armor such as the T-55, though its use was limited by high cost and availability. The gun's recoil system was also highly efficient, with a controlled 370 to 390 millimeter recoil, 39,000 joules absorbed through a dual hydropneumatic cylinder, and a high-efficiency muzzle brake. This allowed recovery in just 1.6 to 1.9 seconds, reducing stress on both chassis and crew. Quick stabilization ensured sustained accuracy, rapid follow-up shots in only 3.5 seconds, and minimal crew fatigue, making the M47 a fast and dependable tank in combat. In contrast, the Tiger II's more powerful ammunition was far less practical, burdened by complex logistics and limited production, especially in the case of tungsten core APCR shells. The transformation went beyond firepower. Crew roles and workload also evolved. In the Tiger II, much of the effectiveness depended on the gunner, whose skill with optics largely determined the success of each shot, while the commander played a secondary role. In the M47, the commander became the central figure scanning the battlefield, estimating ranges with the stereoscopic rangefinder, directing the gunner, and coordinating with the rest of the unit to plan every move and maintain constant mobility. This structure required greater coordination and training, but proved far more flexible in real combat conditions. Logistics was another decisive factor in the transition. Whereas the German 88mm system was fragmented across several gun models and projectile types, with unreliable supply and critical shortages of specialized ammunition, the 90mm became a NATO standard. This meant that a German M47 could be resupplied from American, French, or Belgian depots without issue, ensuring stable supply chains and simplifying planning, maintenance, and crew training. Finally, the shift had a profound psychological impact. Wehrmacht veterans returning as instructors had to temper their admiration for the Tiger II's sheer power and precision with the new reality of the M47, where survival and effectiveness relied on mobility, reliability, and allied coordination. For the new Bundeswehr generation, with no experience of World War II's heavy tanks, the fire and movement doctrine was adopted quickly, with the understanding that speed, coordination, and the ability to remain operational were more important than individual perfection or absolute firepower. The experience accumulated from the Tiger II through the M47, and the Leopard explains today's priority: to operate powerful systems only if they are reliable, maintainable, and interoperable. The lesson is clear. Technical excellence must serve operational sustainability and allied cooperation. Following the Zeitenwende announced in 2022, Germany allocated an extraordinary fund of 100 billion euros to modernize the Bundeswehr. Today, its armored fleet is centered around the Leopard 2 in several variants: A6, A7, A7V, with about 300 vehicles in service in different configurations. The Leopard 2 A7V combines a Rheinmetall L 55A 120mm gun, advanced modular armor, AMAP, active protection against RPGs, and cutting-edge thermal and digital sensors. The Leopard 2's real-world employment in Ukraine has confirmed its robustness, but also revealed modern vulnerabilities: drones, precision artillery, and mines, IEDs. The immediate future revolves around the MGCS, a Franco-German program conceived not so much as a tank, but as a system of systems, intended to replace both the Leopard 2 and the Leclerc by around 2035 to 2040. MGCS envisions a mobile command core and support vehicles, fire modules UGVS, interconnected in a combat cloud. Larger caliber guns, 130 to 140 millimeters. Programmable munitions, unmanned domains, hybrid electric propulsion for greater stealth and efficiency, active/adaptive armor, and advanced AI and AR-based assistance for the crew. Key technologies already under development include 130mm gun prototypes, Rheinmetall, active protection systems, trophy or equivalents, hybrid propulsion, and sensor fusion tools for networked situational awareness. The philosophy is to restore interoperability and shared effort, the same logic that drove the adoption of the 90mm gun in the post-war era, but applied now to systemic connected platforms. However, concrete risks remain. The technical complexity and costs of MGCS could repeat past mistakes if reliability and ease of maintenance are not mandatory requirements. The balance between quality and numbers will be decisive to avoid ending up with star units in insufficient quantities. And international cooperation, essential to share costs and capabilities, brings challenges of standardization and industrial policy. And that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. See you in the next one.